Guys, I'm scared. Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is John Dudley. Won't take too long with this analysis, but can we just take a moment to praise where we're at right now in horror cinema? I've seen 28 Years Later twice now, and I'm obsessed. It's Triumph, a totally visceral, commanding, weird, and incredibly touching spin on The Last of Us and other zombie media formulas, but it just pulls that off so much better with its covert coming-of-age origins and its revolutionary filmmaking and editing style. It just got me thinking, though, we're on an amazing win streak right now, and while there are horror films that aren't going to connect financially, critically, or with the audience, that's every genre. You're not going to get a 100% hit rate. But I think the horror genre has been truly fantastic where it counts in the 2020s decade so far, and the general public notices that too. Whether they love the films or hate the films, they want to see them and interact with them. However, the subsets and subgenres of horror are evolving in how they go to market. So through some commentary on 9 specific films, some that haven't come out yet, I wanted to quickly capture my thoughts as this mile-a-minute industry processes what horror fans want in real time. Potential spoilers ahead, by the way. The new American Gothic horror aesthetic of the late 2010s and early 2020s is, admittedly, quite terrifying and intoxicatingly inviting. And I think what makes it so interesting is how it refreshes a classic style of filmmaking that goes back decades with something deeply unsettling and mythical. And that comes with the territory with us having a lot more access to better visual effects, advances in makeup and prosthetics to enhance the viewing experience. And I can't think of a recent film that pulls this off more proficiently than Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. The naturalism of the cinematography and the horrific kills are absolutely devastating in their bleak presentation, but also it felt slightly silly, atmospheric, and spiritual, getting to the heart of what made those Gothic classics so much fun. I can only hope that Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein evokes the same kind of sentiment when we see it later this year, as it seems to be upgrading the Mary Shelley source material with a touch more obscurity and theatrical grandness. So this wing of the genre would really thrive with more filmmaker-driven takes on these classic texts.
7, 6, 11, 5, 9, and 20 miles today.
Okay, so it's no secret that no matter what, big studios will try to squeeze whatever they can out of successful IPs. But if there's any new examples lately that challenge the idea of a routine legacy sequel, those examples are Alien Romulus and 28 Years Later. I adore both of these films, and that's because each one has roots in a couple of the most iconic pieces of horror media, at least those that cover broad conflicts like Man vs. Alien and Man vs. Zombie. But what Romulus and 28 Years Later pull off is what I'd call a revamp, rather than a legacy sequel or a reboot, because both act as almost completely separate films. Maybe Romulus has more in common with Aliens, and that's fine, but it's reinvigorating due to director Fede Alvarez's focus on gnarly kills, truly gorgeous cinematography, and a daring third act that's gruesome, shocking, with a disgusting xenomorph human hybrid, and that was done with practical effects. Like, that's insane. The same can be said about 28 Years Later, which is arguably far more erratic, frenetic, and jarringly grimier than its predecessors, all while being a secret origin story in a way for Spike. And the third act here, it's tear-jerking. I mean, I sobbed when I first saw this movie. And it's surprising that that tonal balance can still be achieved over 2 decades after the first one was released. The hallmarks are there to please certain fans in some regards, and the ending is genuinely batshit insane. I love it. I think it's pretty cool anytime you get to see Jack O'Connell, so that was fun. But overall, 28 Years Later is a new age of storytelling for fans, one that craves evolution and risk-taking. So seeing Danny Boyle use a 20 iPhone rig to capture every kill, or his splicing of shaky cam and red-tinted frames, stock footage and haunting needle drops, that's cinema right there. The next up in this category is November's Predator Badlands, and after Killer of Killers proved that he could do this in the animation format, this is going to be Prey director Dan Trachtenberg's first crack at a futuristic landscape for the Predator franchise. So what does that mean? More opportunities for artistic growth and world building. And an IP needs that kind of update every once in a while. So why not make it an explosive, creative force to be reckoned with? Alright, so technically a movie like Smile 2 is part of a franchise, but given its isolated, anthological nature, and the fact that Smile only came out 2 years before it, I think it's got more in common with a psychological horror thriller like Silence of the Lambs, or The Orphan, just essentially well-done, feel-bad horror films. However, I noticed a bigger focus from Parker Finn on the sequel to home in on a dialogue surrounding inner hypocrisy and mental health, pressure in the artistic world, and I kept thinking throughout all of its gore and its shocking moments, This is just a high concept film about really just needing therapy. I think horror fans want those high concept ideas, but maybe presented in a new format, tackling the headier ideas while throwing in insanely bloody passages. And it's not that that's not been done before in different decades, but it has a newer, more cynical feel to it. Like the Hugh Grant starring Heretic from last year. That film was mostly a film about belief and faith. Yet to situate these big questions surrounding religion and humanity around such devious traps and a total madman, I feel like it lets the horror fly just as much as the conceptual material. Last but not least, let's talk about Sinners. Sinners is genuinely some of the most fun I have ever had going to the movies. Because yes, it's a vampire flick and it has horror elements, but man, Ryan Coogler makes sure that in every frame and every movement, you know that it's so much more than that. I know it's easy to overhype things, and look, this isn't a full review, but I kept on thinking about how Sinners provided such a singular experience at the movies, one that reminded me of Get Out in 2017 or Hereditary in 2018. So with that in mind, we gotta label this what it is, a boundary pusher. Not only does Coogler build up the characters in this world in an orderly, dense, immersive fashion that's boosted by the fact that it's shot in IMAX on 70mm nonetheless, but once we arrive at the shot, and if you don't know what it is or haven't seen it already, you'll know it when you do. The film takes on a celebratory tone, and it's quite evident the symbolic tilt that it's going to have, synthesizing that with a Tarantino-inspired bloodbaths, a bombastic Rocky Road to Dublin, an against-type Haley Steinfeld with a potty mouth, career best work from Michael B. Jordan, and a guitar-driven score that's loaded with pomp. You're left with a dynamic film that transcends the horror genre, all through binding us to its characters and its makeup, and its love for music. In a similar sense, and maybe a lot less celebratory in tone, we have Zach Kreger's Weapons debuting later this year, and I think that'll have a similar impact on the timeline, especially in how it might be able to stretch the bounds of the genre, so I trust it will be another existential statement piece that we'll be talking about for a long time. Look, I know I missed a lot of other horror movies that have come out and have been well received over the last few years, but bottom line, look at the skill on display here. And on top of that, Eggers, Peele, and Oster all have movies in the queue, so this won't be dying down anytime soon. We're in a fantastic era for horror filmmaking, and I hope we continue to see that translate into box office success and connection to audiences that'll inspire younger filmmakers to create worlds of their own. I mean, maestros like Kubrick, Carpenter, Romero, Craven, and Raimi, they were able to be such cultural touchstones because of how they innovated, adapted, and created. So to witness horror films now reflecting the subversiveness of those icons, and to see it transform the genre in a new way, it's beautiful. Anyway, that's all I got. Stay spooky, go see 28 Years Later, stream Sinners when it hits Max, and go to theaters and support these stories, because that's how we're gonna get more variations of them. Okay, see ya!